Welcome back to Good Sports for You, where we are talking about good sports for you. And today we are back once again looking at my grandfather's scrapbook from 1953. That is the Milwaukee Braves' very first season in Milwaukee. It's so cool to look back at this little time capsule, read up about what they were saying in the newspapers about these players. They write in such a different style. It is so cool. I've had a bunch of these videos in the past, so make sure to go check those out if you haven't seen them already. But today we got three new players to look at. We got Johnny Logan, we got Max Surant, and we got Jim Wilson. I cannot wait to share what these articles were saying about them. But before we hop into it, I want to remind you to like, comment, and subscribe. I appreciate it so much. Alrighty, so this first guy that we got is Johnny Logan, and Johnny Logan was actually a name that I did know, and he is on the Walk of Fame at Miller Park, so that's probably where I recognize him from. I recognize when I went to the game seeing his name on that walk. So let's read up about him though. Johnny Logan, a fast improving shortstop, is one of several former Brewers, and these Brewers are the minor league teams, right? Who will return to Milwaukee with the Braves. At the start of the 51 season, Logan and Jack Dittmer formed a strong second base combination for the Brewers, and manager Charlie Grimm wasted no time to bring the two up after he himself had moved from the Brewers to the Braves in midseason. Logan, 26, split both the 1951 and 1952 season between the Brewers and Braves. An indication of his tremendous improvement can be gathered from his batting figures. 249 in 57 games with the Brewers in 1951, 219 in 62 games with the Braves, and 301 in 42 games with the Brewers in 1952, and 283 in 113 games with the Braves. Logan's fielding average with the Brewers in 1951 was an exceptional .996. He committed only one error in 259 chances. He went 46 straight games without a bobble that season, easily erasing the old American Association mark of 22 set in 1923 by Jimmy Cooney of the Brewers, a brother of Braves coach Johnny Cooney. Logan led the National League shortstops in fielding last season. So again, this is just so cool to look at because it really only talks about like batting average and fielding percentage, which I think is really fascinating. As I've talked about in my former videos, fielding percentage really doesn't matter now, but back then it was one of the most important things. So when we took a look at Johnny Logan's stats, he was very good with the Milwaukee Braves. I mean, he was a four-time All-Star, consistently getting MVP votes. He had a little to no pop. I mean, honestly though, 15 home runs coming from the shortstop position at that time is not awful at all. His walk rate was a little bit low though, but he hit for a high average, which I know was a lot more important back then, but I still think hitting for a high average is important. The OPS plus, I mean, it climbed up there, and obviously they never are going to talk about OPS plus back then. I don't even know if it was a stat that existed. But he was consistently putting up very quality seasons. And also I was reading about his Wikipedia page afterwards, and they talked about how after he retired, he ended up living in Milwaukee for the rest of his life. So he was obviously a big fan of the city, and he would often go to Brewers games, the Milwaukee Brewers, not the minor league team, obviously. And he ended up living in Milwaukee for the rest of his life, which I think is very cool. Just a guy who came to Milwaukee and obviously loved it so much that he decided to stick around. Alrighty, this next guy that we're going to be talking about is Max Surant. Honestly, I had never heard of this guy before, though. Matthew Constantine Max Surant, which also, given the full government name, is so hilarious. But anyway, Matthew Constantine Max Surant, the Braves' heavyweight right-handed pitcher, bounced around in the St. Louis Cardinals farm system for 10 years before he finally got his big league chance. Surant started his career in organized baseball in 1938. He pitched for Rochester of the International League from 1941 through 1948, except for 3 seasons in the armed services. The Cardinals sold him to the Braves in 1948, but he was returned to the St. Louis club because of a sore arm, which also, I feel like you don't really get a lot of, the medical checks back then as you do back now, where everything is it's got to be cleared with the medical team if he's okay to be traded and stuff like that. So back then, I'm even surprised to see that they're like, hey, no, we're sending you back because of this medical issue. That fall, he was drafted from Rochester by the Chicago White Sox. After 1 season in the American League, he was sold to Sacramento of the Pacific Coast League. The Braves purchased him late in the 1950 season. He has responded to his first real major league chance with 29 victories in the last 3 seasons, including 12 in both 1951 and 1952. Surant, 30, is 6 feet tall and weighs 210 pounds. A jewelry salesman in the offseason, he is also an avid hockey fan. He attended all of the home games of the Boston Bruins the last few seasons. I love talking about the personal history of players when we're writing about articles, and we need to bring it back. That's what they would do all the time back in this day in like 53. There was one guy, I think it was, I don't know if he's come up yet, but they were basically like, oh yeah, he just got married, and they gave like the full government name of his wife and everything like that, the day that they got married, where they got, I'm surprised they didn't say like what chapel they got married in, you know? But then to talk about Max Surant and be like, oh yeah, he also does jewelry and stuff like that, when that would typically be like a weird, interesting article on MLB.com or something like that. And then to mention that he loves hockey and that he went to every single Boston Bruins game, I just love that. But when you're looking at his career, Max Surant, he wasn't that great. I mean, in his single season in Milwaukee, he put up a 4.18 ERA, which isn't bad, and an 11.5 win-loss record. It's funny that they talked about his wins so much because you look at the actual win-loss record, and he wasn't like that good in terms of a percentage, but he got up to 12 wins, I guess. You know, so I mean, I just think that that's really fascinating because they highlight so much, you know, players' records and pitchers' records and stuff like that, when really we don't talk about that much at all. I mean, we have guys who win Cy Youngs now while having a losing record because we recognize that that isn't just a pitcher's job to get the win or to get the loss. But I mean, for the career, he had a decent little career, 9 seasons. I mean, this was really the last season that he was really solid. But even then, he had an ERA plus below 100. So he was less than a league average pitcher. But you look at some of these innings pitched still, and this is a guy who wasn't even chucking all the time, and he still gets easily above 200 innings over the past couple seasons, and then 170 in the next season when he only pitched in 28 games, and then 200 the season after that. You just do not see that anymore, so that really highlights the differences in the era that we live in now compared to that 1950s era. And the last guy that we got today is Jim Wilson, also another incredible article. Jim Wilson, one of baseball's best comebacks, was accomplished by Jim Wilson, Braves right-hander. In 1945, while pitching for the Boston Red Sox, Wilson was struck by a line drive off the bat of Hank Greenberg, now general manager of the Cleveland Indians. As some of you may know, Hank Greenberg was one of the best players ever, especially for that time. You take a look at his baseball reference page, and I mean, there's just so much bold. He was in the Hall of Fame, multiple-time MVP. If it wasn't for his time in the military, he could have gone down as one of the best players to ever do it. So we know that that ball was coming off of the bat hot, to say the least. Wilson suffered a fractured skull. Like I said, it was coming off of the bat hot. After unsuccessful trials with the St. Louis Browns and Philadelphia Athletics and plenty of hard luck in the minors, Wilson battled back when he won 24 games for Seattle of the Pacific Coast League in 1950. He had a 16-game winning streak before he lost a 3-2 decision. In his baseball wanderings, before finally sticking with the Braves in 1951, Wilson also figured in the deal which brought Vern Stevens and Jack Kramer to the Red Sox in 1947 from the Browns. Milwaukee fans may remember Wilson as a member of the Louisville Cardinals in 1946 and 1947, and the Toledo Mud Hens in 1948. 6 feet 1 inches tall and weighing 195 pounds, Wilson, 31, is a native of San Diego, California. He had a 7-7 record with the Braves in 1951 and a 12-14 mark last season. Jim Wilson, when you're looking at the stats, I mean, he was decent in his couple of seasons in Milwaukee, and then he went over to Baltimore, where he honestly had a good season. Yes, he led the league in losses, but as we look at it from a modern lens, that doesn't really matter. But I mean, he put up consecutive decent seasons in Milwaukee. Especially, you gotta remember, this guy just had what should have been a season-ending injury. And you look at his time in Boston, like, he obviously really struggled for like the one game that he played. And then, like they talked about, he had unsuccessful stints with a couple of teams there, but then he finally turned it around with the other Boston team and started to become an average to slightly below average MLB pitcher, but who could just go out and play for you, which is what you need. But I mean, he had a decent little career, 3-time All-Star, because he put up a couple of quality seasons all in a row. Did he really deserve an All-Star that past season? I wouldn't say so, but you know what? I wasn't back then, so it's not for me to say. I think it's hilarious that they basically spend this entire article talking about things from the past, and it isn't until the very last sentence that they really mention his time with the Boston Braves and how he's been. Whereas like some of the other guys, they talk about their most recent seasons for a good chunk of the article, but Jim Wilson, on the other hand, no, they're just talking about how he bounced around all over the place after getting hit in the head. And also, one interesting fact about Jim Wilson is he went on to be a general manager for the Milwaukee Brewers, so he sticked around in Milwaukee for a little bit afterwards, and he was honestly a big time piece in building up the Milwaukee Brewers, who were a brand new franchise at the time. This is the Major League Milwaukee Brewers, right? He was the one who orchestrated the trade for Don Money. Don Money was one of the better players in Milwaukee Brewers early history, especially. Honestly, one of the first real stars that Milwaukee had. And then he selected Robin Yount with his draft pick, with the 3rd overall pick, and then promoted him very, very quickly to the MLB. And as we know, Robin Yount went on to be the greatest Brewer of all time. So Jim Wilson's impact in Milwaukee goes well beyond just his playing days, his couple of years in Milwaukee with the Milwaukee Braves, because he was so influential in turning the Milwaukee Brewers into a team that was actually competent, that could compete, by drafting Robin Yount and trading for Don Money. But that is all I got for you right now. I appreciate it so much you watching. I hope you had a great time listening to me talk about this old scrapbook from my pops. It is so cool to look back at this stuff. I absolutely love to look back at history. And like I said, it's so interesting to compare how we wrote about baseball back then versus how we write about it now. I wish that there were more personal anecdotes talking about, like, yes, I want to hear what Christian Yelich is up to in the offseason. Does he have a second job? Is he going to hockey games and stuff like that? I wish that they would do that more often instead of it being like a novelty article or something like that. But thank you again so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, do all those things, and I'm out. Peace.